Hi everyone. We're gonna go over the lesson 11 practice set. Let's start with A. So what we're gonna be doing in this practice set for A through D is reading the first four problems, and for each problem we have to create a one-step equation. Now, since these have context in the word problems, our answers also need to be with the same context. Typically, one-step equations were given to us in a previous lesson. And then we know that once we have the equation, we just use the inverse operation to solve for the variable. In these instances, we're going to have to create the equation from the information given to us and then solve for the variable. So we do get to pick what the variables are, but we still have to go through the process of creating the equation, making sure that it's representing what the word problem is saying, and then solving for the variable. So for A, Rover, a St. Bernard, and Spot, an English sheepdog, together weighed 213 pounds. Rover weighs 118 pounds. How much did Spot weigh? So, reading this problem, one of the key things here is that together they weighed 213 pounds. So, what we can gather from that information is that Rover, which I will use R to represent, and Spot, which I will use S, together, meaning in this case addition, weighed a combined 213 pounds. So we have our equation, but the problem is we have two variables. So we read the rest of the problem for more information. Rover weighs 118 pounds. So we know the value of Rover. It's 118. So we can substitute R for 118 and mentally use the commutative property where I'm going to change the order since it's an addition problem. So Spot's weight plus 118 equals 213 pounds. From here, the only thing left to do would be to solve for A. Or for S. In order to do that, we have to use our inverse operation. In this case, since we're adding, the inverse would be subtracting 118 from both sides. Now, before you go and solve, keep in mind that we're talking about how much did Spot weigh. So we should say that Spot weighed, if our units are in pounds, he weighed a certain amount of pounds. So your answer should include how much Spot weighed. Now you're solving for S, but since it's a word problem, we need a word answer. In other words, we need to write a complete sentence that answers the question. Spot weighs whatever 213 minus 118 pounds. So make sure you solve for that and calculate it. B. Don cranked for a number of turns. Then Tim gave the crank 216 turns. If the total was 400, how many did Don give? So Don and Tim together, and I'm going to put M for Tim to not get confused, was 400. Now we know that Tim's amount was 216. So instead of M for Tim, we can write 216. Oh no, our picture went away. So I'm going to have to there we go. And I mean we're gonna have to yeah, it's okay. So let's start over. Tim gave the crank 260 turns. So we have that Don plus, and where we're at is that we're gonna take 216 equivalent to 400. So once we have our equation set up like we do here, again, we're adding, the inverse is subtracting. We subtract 216 from both sides. That will give us the total number of turns that Don gave the crank. And again, your answer should be in a complete sentence. So Don gave so many turns to the crank. But your answer is not D equals whatever you calculated. The answer is Don gave this many turns to the crank. Again, they should be complete sentences because we have word problems. For C, there were 254 horses in the corral yesterday. The rancher moved some of them to the south corral. Only 126 horses remained in the north corral. How many were moved? So we start with the given amount, 254. He moved some of them. How many? We don't know. That's for south. And after he moved them, only 126 were left. So we have to figure out what operation are we using to solve. And in this instance, the operation that we're using is subtraction. So we have 254 horses to start with. Some of them were moved. We don't know how many were moved. But once they were moved, only 126 were left. So now to solve for the remaining number of horses, you would think it'd be inverse operations, but you'll notice that the subtrahend is actually second. And we know that when that's the case, what we have to do is we have to switch the subtrahend with the difference. And then it'll be 254 minus 126. And again, your answer should be in a sentence form. So there were horses left in the corral. Cynthia had a lot of paper. After she used 36 sheets for a report, she only had 164 left. How many did she have to begin with? So in this instance, we don't know our starting amount. So that's going to be our variable. From our starting amount, we used 36. And after we used 36, there were only 164 left. Now, since the minuend is the variable and we're given the subtrahend, we can actually use inverse operations to solve for this equation. So we just add 36 to both sides. And again, for our answer, we want a word answer. Cynthia had so many sheets of paper at first. So for E and F, these are going to be up to you. Write a word problem about combining that fits this equation. So you start with $15, you add some amount, and then you end up with $16.13. So that's your template. An example could be, Leslie had $15. She found some money, and now she has $16.13. How much money did she find? That could be one example, right? Or savings, maybe an allowance, maybe she got paid a bonus. And it doesn't necessarily have to even be pay. You could say that you and your friend have $15. You have $15. Your friend has so much money. Combined, you have $16.13. How much money does your friend have? That could be another way of phrasing it. Now, for our write a word problem about separating the fits this equation. So here, the template's a little different. It's like, because 32 minus s equals 25. So you start with 32 of something. You then use, lose, move, give away, whatever. S amount of it. You have 25 of the something left. How much did you use or lose or move or give away? So that's the template. Obviously, you guys have to be more specific with this. You should be putting something, right? Like think of a scenario where you would have 32 of something, and then for whatever reason, some of it went away, and now you only have 25 left of it. So you can say you had 32 marbles, you lost so many of them, you only have 20, you lost some of them, you have 25 left. How many marbles did you lose? So those are all things examples that you could use to make your word problem. You don't have to solve them, You can if you want, but you don't have to solve them. The important thing here is to create the word problem themselves. Now, that's your practice set. For your IXL, it's going to be fractions of whole numbers. As a reminder, every whole number is actually a fraction over 1. So here we have 2/3. So you can just rewrite the fraction as 2/3 multiplied by, and then instead of 6, we do 6 over 1. You multiply straight across, and then you have 12 over 3, and then you simplify, if you can. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So our answer here is 4. So just keep in mind that you're going to want to make the whole numbers into fractions over 1, multiply straight across, and then simplify. Remember that the instructions do say whole or mixed number. So your answer is a mixed number, like 16 over 3. You're going to have to long divide it and then turn it into a mixed number using the methods that we went over last week, right? Where your remainder is your numerator and your denominator is the divisor. And this is an example. Obviously, this isn't that one. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the questions thread.